To build their strongest castles, ancient Japan had a secret ingredient: people.
No, I'm not kidding. It was a real belief that the most durable structures, we're talking castles, bridges, dams, had to be built with live human sacrifices sealed right inside their foundations. But honestly, that's not even the weirdest thing we're going to cover today.
So first up, let's talk about a practice that sounds absolutely disgusting, but was so valuable they literally called it golden fertilizer. And believe it or not, it had a huge positive impact on an entire city. Okay, so picture this. You're a landlord in ancient Edo, what we now call Tokyo. You've got tenants, you're collecting rent, but there's this other thing, another product you have access to that could actually make you more money than rent. Any guesses what that could be? Yep, selling the collected human waste from the public toilets in their buildings. For landlords, this wasn't just a side hustle, it was a literal gold mine.
This whole system was called shimogoi. Farmers would literally come into the city of Edo just to buy up as much human waste as they could carry. They'd haul it back to their farms, use it to grow their crops, and then sell that food right back to the people living in the city.
And look, this wasn't some weird underground practice. This was serious business. There's an agricultural guide from 1697 that straight up says, a good farmer prized human waste just as much as gold. It was an absolutely essential resource.
But here's where it gets really fascinating. Not all poop was created equal. Oh no. The waste that came from wealthy lords, guys who ate really rich, diverse diets, was considered premium stuff. It's sold for a much higher price, and those farmers would use it to grow better produce, which they'd then sell back to, you guessed it, the very same lords. It was a perfect, bizarre economic loop. And here is the single biggest upside to this whole seemingly gross habit. While cities in Europe were just dumping their sewage into the streets and rivers, spreading all kinds of horrible diseases, Edo had this incredible, self-sustaining recycling system. The constant demand for fertilizer meant the city was kept unbelievably clean. All right, so let's shift gears from something that was practical to something that was, well, just pure, unfiltered weirdness. We're talking about a form of art and warfare that is truly one of a kind. You heard me. Back in the 1600s, some unknown artist created these incredible scrolls called higassen. The name says it all. These are, and I mean this seriously, detailed, epic paintings of people waging war on each other with farts. And they got really creative with the tactics. I mean, look at this. This scene shows a guy launching a fart with so much force it blows a hole clean through a wall to hit the people on the other side. A full-on sneak attack. And this just shows you the kind of strategic depth they were thinking about. You've got one group unleashing this massive cloud of gas, right? But the other side came prepared. They're using fans to literally blow the attack right back in their faces. It's ridiculous, it's hilarious, and apparently it was popular enough to be immortalized like this.
Okay, let's step away from the absurd and go right back to the horrific. It's time to talk more about that secret ingredient I mentioned at the very beginning.
The practice was known as Hitobashira, which means human pillar. The belief was that by sealing a living person inside a wall or foundation, you would please the gods. The spirit of that person would then become a guardian, eternally protecting the building from things like floods, earthquakes, or enemy attacks.
One of the most famous stories is about a woman named Oshizu. Back in 1576, during the construction of Maroka Castle, one of the main walls just kept collapsing. So they decided they needed a Hitobashira. Oshizu, a poor woman, volunteered, but she had one condition: make her son a samurai. The Lord agreed, so she was placed into the foundation, and they built the wall, crushing her, and the wall finally stood strong. But then, the Lord was transferred to a different province, and the promise to her son was completely forgotten. Her sacrifice was totally betrayed.
To this very day, there's a local legend that every spring when the rains come, the moat around the castle overflows. And they say it's not rainwater. It's the flood of Oshizu's tears, still crying over that broken promise.
And for our final habit, we've arrived at what might just be the most extreme act of devotion and self-destruction you can possibly imagine: the ritual of becoming a living Buddha.
This process, called Soku Shinbutsu, was basically a years-long ordeal of self-mummification. For the first 1,000 days, a monk would eat only pine needles, seeds, and tree resin to get rid of all their body fat. Then, for another 100 days, they'd drink only salt water to completely dehydrate themselves. Finally, when they were on the brink of death, they were put in a tiny pine box, buried alive with just an air tube and a little bell. They'd ring that bell once a day, until one day the ringing stopped.
Now, this practice was actually outlawed in 1879, but that didn't stop a monk named Bukai. He attempted the ritual in 1903. Because it was illegal, his followers just left him buried. It wasn't until 1961 that researchers finally found him, and to their absolute amazement, he was perfectly mummified. Against all odds, he had actually done it.
From human pillars to fart battles, these things were, at one point, just a normal part of life. It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? A few hundred years from now, what parts of our daily lives, things we consider totally normal, are people going to look back on with absolute disgust and horror?